All right, it's 1 o'clock. Welcome everybody. So we'll just wait just a couple more seconds, minutes, just to make sure everybody can join in. Some of the people from Eastern time, they just come back to lunch, sit down. We'll take a minute and we'll start. Just waiting for a couple more people and then we'll start. Oh, I see we have some issue where people can't hear our voices. Christian, you hear me okay?
I hear you, JD.
Okay. Loud and clear. All right, awesome. Okay, thank you so much. All right, everybody. So thanks for joining us today. We already did a webinar, obviously, recently, a couple of weeks ago. If some of you joined that, we wanted to introduce what were the IEEPA tariff refund opportunity. Well, today I have the pleasure to be joined by my colleague, Christian. We are going to present you today the recent updates and the ACE setup. So we want to just give you an update on phase one, where we are with the IEEPA tariff refund, present you a little bit how it works. We did meet a lot of people in the last few weeks, last few days. I know a lot of you have questioned different issues regarding the portal, the CAPE, how to file the refund and everything. Is there a compliance issue? So those are the things we wanted to answer today to all of you. So Christian, maybe we can go to the next slide. So again, so your host for the webinar, you have myself, Jean-Daniel Vermette, everybody call me JD. I'm the senior manager for Layton related to custom duty. And we have Christian Goring, our director of trade compliance and regulatory affairs here at Layton. And Layton, maybe as you guys may already know or do not know, so we're an international consulting firm. Been in operation for 25 years now, in more than about 18 countries in Europe and North America. We have more than 3,000 employees. We serve more than 50,000 clients. And here in the US, we also focus on R&D, trade compliance, custom duty, grants, cost segregation. We do sales tax review. And we have offices in Phoenix, we have offices in Boston, San Francisco, Houston, and New York City now. So we'll present you the agenda for today. So obviously today we're going to talk a little bit about the IEEPA tariff. I'll give you a little summary, talk about the submission, what is the ACE, how can you get set up on ACE, the ACE and CAPE IEEPA refund, how does it work, and also after that we're just going to introduce also other than the IEEPA. Maybe some of you are exporting, maybe some of you are also paying other duties than the IEEPA. We just want to present you at the end also other opportunity for refund or optimization related to other duties that we also cover here at Layton. So with any further ado, Christian, I'll let you start.
Great, thank you, JD. So yes, IEEPA has been all over the news since February, when the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the Trump administration's effort to impose additional taxes using the IEEPA method, and as such, those tariffs are now eligible for recovery. And the process about going through that is called the Consolidated Administration and Processing of Entries, or the CAPE tool, which is housed within the U.S. Customs ACE secure data portal. And as it states there, importers of record or authorized brokers must use CAPE. So, I mean, the CAPE is the one tool to get these refunds back to you via ACH to a U.S. bank account. And there are certain stipulations regarding what is eligible in phase one. And we will go over those details here in the coming slides. The most critical factor when looking for the IEEPA refund is understanding if you are the importer of record. And why that's important is because only the entity that originally brought that product into the United States is eligible for the duty refund linked to IEEPA. So how do you know if you're the importer? The easiest way is you have an ACE account and you can pull data out of your ACE reporting tool that will show you, exactly what entries are you imported under your importer of record number. Now, if you do not have access to your ACE account or one is not set up, you can request information from your broker. If your broker has, you would request the 7501 form, which is basically the formal entry documentation that the broker files on your behalf with U.S. Customs, the entry packet, which would include things such as commercial invoices, and you could ask them for an entry number list. If the broker provides you with this information, you are the importer of record, and those IEEPA duties paid on those imports can be recovered. One critical element here, something that we run into with several clients, is understanding, well, what if I get an invoice from my supplier and there's a line item on that invoice that says tariff or duty? So in those cases, those are typically considered DDP shipments or delivered duties paid, which is an indicator that the supplier you're purchasing from was the importer of record for that product. And then they are now passing those tariffs that they paid onto you to help recover those IEEPA tariffs that they were charged by U.S. Customs when importing that product. And in that case, you would not be the importer of record, and unfortunately, you would not be entitled to the IEEPA refund through the CAPE system. Now, how to register for the ACE portal. So ACE is the acronym for the Automated Commercial Environment, and it's essentially the U.S. Customs system that lets importers and exporters control everything that revolves their imports and or exports. So in order to set up a ACE account, you need to complete a U.S. Customs form 5106. And that's basically a registration form that you submit to U.S. Customs and in an attempt or in order to retrieve or create a importer number. There's a lot of information required on that form relating to your business, what you do, what you import. It'll require a email address along with all that other business entity type information. When you have that form submitted to U.S. Customs, it'll take them typically 1 or 2 weeks to process that form and get back to you with information, at which point you will then be able to go to the ACE website and register an account there. Now, it is important to note that the email address that you entered on that 5106 form needs to be the same email address that is used at the time of creation of that ACE login. And that is because the U.S. Customs will use that as a two-factor verification tool to make sure that there's no, or essentially to prevent fraudulent ACE account being created under a different company's entity. Now, once the account is created, that is instantaneous. And then you would go in and verify your information, and you would have access to your ACE account. Now, on this slide here, we'll talk about the ACE CAPE IEEPA refunds. Now, as the U.S. Customs system works through the CAPE portal, they've currently released what is considered phase one. And phase one is essentially a tool to claim IEEPA refunds on very non-complicated and unexpired entries. And what I mean by that, I'll discuss here in a few bullet points here. So phase one is limited in scope. It only covers unliquidated entries and entries within the 90-day reliquidation window. Now, you're going to ask, what does that mean? Essentially, unliquidated entries are entries that were imported into the US within the last 314 days. US Customs typically takes 314 days to liquidate an entry. What that means is when US Customs liquidates that entry, it's essentially they are closing the book on that import, meaning they've gone through their audit, they've gone through their processes and are satisfied with the information provided by the broker. They have reviewed and deemed it accurate that the importer has paid any and all duties liable in the correct amount, and U.S. Customs has no further questions on that import. So you have those 314 entries within the last 314 days that are eligible for phase one of CAPE, in addition to an additional 90-day window of entries that have passed liquidation. However, to make things even more fun, the U.S. Customs says, okay, well, actually, even though it's a 90-day reliquidation window, we're going to only process entries that are within the last 80 days post-liquidation. So in reality, you have roughly 314 plus 80 days, so 394 days from the date of importation to claim IEEPA refunds on those entries. Now, to go in a little more detail, phase one does not cover entries that are past the 80 days post-liquidation. It does not include entries that are in open or suspended protest status. It does not include entries that are included in any kind of duty drawback claims or entries that are flagged for reconciliation. It also does not include anti-dumping, countervailing, or suspended liquidation statuses or warehouse entries. And this is why I made that comment. Phase one covers the simple non-expired entries because there are a lot of caveats here on what is not covered. That being said, phase one does include roughly 63% of import entries, which is good news for most importers that do not have complex entry types. Now, looking at the timeline, from the time you submit your refund claim to U.S. Customs, it takes roughly 45 days for them to review and liquidate that claim. Once everything is reviewed and found to be error-free, you will be seeing an ACH transaction within 60 to 90 days from the date that you submitted the original claim. And there's some good news that the first checks are already being sent out the first ACH transactions are already being sent out to importers. So we can see it is actually well below that 90-day window, seeing how we are maybe 20 to 25 days into the IEEPA refund cycle. So U.S. Customs is actually on the ball on processing these and making sure that the IEEPA dollars are flowing back to the original importers. Now, looking at the challenges, early reports do show that there were some portal access issues. A lot of these have been resolved by U.S. Customs. There is a special format required to submit these entries to U.S. Customs in the CAPE system, and there are multiple validation functions that do occur, and there are some failures that did occur for certain importers based on not having the data formatted correctly. And the real challenge here is execution risk is real. Errors can delay or disqualify claims. Therefore, it is crucial that you have a thorough understanding of what exactly you are submitting in this CAPE tool. It's not just I'm going to download all my entries from February of 2025 to February of 2026, upload them in the CAPE system and see what sticks. That is the incorrect approach. It needs to be methodical, and it needs to be a truly audited process to make sure that you are claiming only entries that are impacted by IEEPA. Now, looking at the current first week data snapshot of phase one. So the claim portal created by U.S. Customs is live. I'm mainly going to focus on the lower third of this slide here. The CAPE portal is fully deployed. You can see here in the first week there were 75,000 declarations submitted. However, only 47,000 of those were successfully validated by the first validation process within the CAPE system. So that does indicate 37% of fallout, which just amounts to additional rework and shows that a lot of these importers are just, unfortunately, blindly uploading information and just expecting an automated refund for whatever IEEPA dollars are due to them. Unfortunately, that is not the way that the system works. As you can see here, the way the CAPE portal operates, it systemically removes the IEEPA HTS classifications, and then it goes through and recalculates the duties that are paid or that are owed to U.S. Customs. The difference between what you paid and what is recalculated owed is essentially the refund amount that will be coming back to the importer. And this is the primary calculation engine to support the refund determination. This is also 100% deployed. And looking at the numbers down there, so of 11.2 million entries accepted for duty recalculation, an additional 2.1 million entries were rejected during the secondary validation period, which accounts for another roughly 20% of entries failing that process. Going on to review and liquidation, this is the process where U.S. Customs, after they go through their full audit and review, which is one of the byproducts of submitting entries into the CAPE portal, it does allow U.S. Customs to reevaluate all of those entries, which they will do through their various tools using artificial intelligence, and to make sure that the entries are accurate, even if they did pass the original liquidation process. This is a secondary audit that U.S. Customs will be performing prior to sending out any kind of IEEPA refund checks. Again, this process is also 100% deployed. 11.74 million entries liquidated and advanced onto the refund process as of April 26th. So that is great news, that they are already liquidating entries. Like I mentioned, companies or importers are already seeing ACH transactions pending or receiving them into their accounts already. But it does also indicate that only 15% of entries that have been accepted have been liquidated. So it's not going to be a very quick process. Again, they give themselves 45 days plus another 45 plus or minus for the ACH transaction. But again, it is working, which is great news for a system that was put in rather quickly by the U.S. government. And then one more note here under refunds. It is important to note that refunds are consolidated by the importer of record and liquidation date. So let's say you had 10,000 entries that you imported. It's not going to mean you're going to get 10,000 different ACH transactions. They will be grouped together by the importer of record number, but as most companies only have one, it'll be one transaction per liquidation date. And liquidation date is dependent on the date that U.S. Customs finalizes the review of the IEEPA submission in the CAPE portal. So what is liquidation? I discussed this at a high level earlier. And in summary, it's basically when the importer files an entry and pays estimated duties, CBP will later review the entries and adjust the amounts owed. When CBP liquidates, they basically say, okay, I'm satisfied with what you have submitted through your broker and the duty that you've paid. And the liquidation date is basically, like I mentioned, the closing of the books of those entries. Why it matters: it starts the deadlines for protests or appeals if the importer disagrees with Customs decision. It determines when additional duties may be billed or refunds are issued, which is important for CAPE. It's often important for audits, accounting, and trade compliance records. So in many cases, liquidation occurs within 314 days, although there are exceptions, especially if you file any kind of post-summary correction, which could trigger an early liquidation. So why engage with Leighton? So Leighton specializes in IEEPA refund maximization. And that term maximization is crucial, mainly because, as I mentioned before, the CAPE portal is engineered in a way to ensure that only IEEPA impacted entries are uploaded into the system. So it's not just a simple upload everything that you have. The success of a recovery claim depends heavily on identifying eligible imports, validating duty payments, confirming the import of record entitlement, and ensuring accuracy before submission to the CAPE portal. While customs brokers are an essential partner for all importers who import product directly using their importer record number, consultants are often better positioned to conduct the forensic import audit necessary to maximize and defend IEEPA recoveries. And at Layton, we do a IEEPA recovery retrospective audit approach. We audit all your imports, which is the most important step before CAPE filing. Not only is it important to understand what you have filed or what entries are eligible for CAPE and IEEPA refund, but it's important to understand, are these entries accurate? Meaning, did the customs broker actually file these entries accurately? And since the second Trump administration, tariffs have been a revolving door. They've come, they've gone, rates have changed by the week in many cases. And we've never had tariff stacking before to the scale that we're seeing now. And tariff stacking is where you have, let's say you have the original 301 China tariff, and now you have your IEEPA tariff. And now you have, if there's metal in the product, you have your 232 metal tariff, right? Those all compound on one another. And if your broker omitted one of those accidentally, during this CAPE refund review, U.S. Customs will make sure that when they strip away that IEEPA tariff code, they'll review it and say, okay, this should have been impacted by the 232 metal. Is it there? If it is, great, you repaid it. If not, all of a sudden, you're paying 25% additional on the 232 metal tariff. And let's say you were paying 15% on the IEEPA, which you're getting back, so you're still now net owing a 10% incremental duty to U.S. Customs, although you were fully expecting a full refund of the IEEPA, which you still are, but because you did not declare because all the associated tariffs were not declared at the point of entry, U.S. Customs will now, when they recalculate, will issue you an invoice instead of getting an ACH refund back to your account. So that is where it's crucial to do that forensic review to make sure that everything is accurate prior to submission into the CAPE system. We have tariff consultants focused on maximizing the recovery. CAPE filing accuracy depends on data integrity. I cannot stress that enough. Data integrity is crucial. We have better prepared to reduce CDP risk, and tariff consultants coordinate across the entire recovery process. Moving on, I will hand it back over to JD. JD, I can't hear you.
The good old mute mic just happens every day, right? So, all right, sorry about that. So thank you, Christian. So we, as I was saying, we will keep some time at the end to answer all of your questions. Obviously, Christian tried to cover as much as possible on some of the updates, what's going on. Obviously, we could go many hours on many technicalities. Obviously, if you want a deeper understanding or specific question, we can answer those at the end. We'll keep to about the 15 minutes for Q&A. You can put those in the chat, and we'll be more than happy to answer those. Other than the IEEPA, obviously IEEPA is a big thing, and Christian mentioned about how there's so many tariffs right now, more than has ever been. And I also wanted to introduce other expertise that we do here at Layton, or something that might be interesting while we talk about custom duties, which we want to expand the value on just not doing IEEPA. So obviously when we deal with a client, we'll try to, if they have been paying IEEPA, we want to file that as quickly as possible, since it's the most urgent thing. But there's also other things we want to look for. And one thing I want to know about that is we're not obviously custom broker. We don't change the relationship you have with your broker. We are obviously work with brokers. We want to be more towards optimization. That we will specialize in, okay? Optimization and recovery. So all of a client, I want to make sure that it's clear for everyone. as we do not challenge any relationship with brokers. Most only we're more towards the optimization fields. That's where we actually specialize. So other than the IEEPA tariff, we do pure duty recovery, optimization, and obviously duty drawbacks. So on next slide, I wanted to introduce the duty recovery. So duty recovery, if you've been importing either in Canada or in the US, if you have both or you just have a US entity, it can be done in both countries, just different way of processing. But the duty recovery is just a process of uncovering or recovering custom duty overpayment, basically. So you see that the IEEPA unlawful, but maybe you've been paying also other duties in the past few years or past few months, then we can see why you've been paying those duties, what classification has been applied to your imports, and can we basically have a more beneficial duty rate and still be 100% compliant with the CBP. That's basically how it works. So it's really about analysis and interpretation and creating IDs. Also, how do you use your good when it comes in the country? Who do you sell it to? Do you transform it? All of those things, we call that the end use of a product or a good, can also affect what type of classification you put on imports. So the leading cause of duty overpayment is obviously the tariff classification, the tariff code that is assigned to the good. So our team specializes in interpreting the tariff to ensure goods are actually correctly reclassified to your best financial benefit. So that's what we look for. So all while being very compliant, obviously, with the CBP. So I put in Canada, this reclassification, it might be interesting for you if you're also importing to customers in Canada. I know sometimes Canada can be a great market for companies in the US. So if you are importing on behalf of your customer into Canada and you're paying some duties, then we can go back 4 years. Here in the United States, we can go back about 18 months to maybe 2 years to reclassification or a pure duty recovery. And also, we're going to talk about that right after, but we're equally also successful also in duty recovery and also drawback opportunities. Sometimes we do talk to a lot of companies and sometimes they are aware or not very aware, but they do not take benefit of the duty drawback. And we're going to present you a little bit how you can qualify for drawback and what can we do for drawback very quickly on the next slide. So basically, duty drawback is very simple. You import a good or product into the US, and then you re-export that same good or product outside of the US. So basically, you're selling outside of the country to anywhere else. Then if you paid some duties, you might be eligible to a duty drawback. So it's a program, federal program, that offers additional opportunities for duty drawback. If you never apply, we can go back into the details on the meanings if you think you can qualify for duty drawbacks, but basically you can go back 5 years if you never took advantage of the drawback. And then obviously if you keep importing and exporting, we can also be proactively filing for drawbacks for your future months or future years, depending also of the volume and transaction. So basically drawback is just the aim to improve the competitiveness of the domestic businesses. We offer relief from most duties and taxes imported goods that are typically exported after. And then that enables recovery of about 99% of custom duties paid on goods imported over the previous 3 years. And we can go back even as far as 5 years from now. So that's why I want to discuss. If you think you could qualify, you want us to take a look. Sometimes when we do have access to your ACE portal, because we're filing the IEEPA tariff refund, well, we may have access to other information that might let us do an analysis, see if there's other recovery opportunities for you. So do not hesitate to let us know if that's something that could be quite interesting if you think you're paying other duties or you're doing export also outside of the IEEPA. So that's it. We will move to our Q&A. I think we already got some question in the chat. I do have one. I'll try to go back to the top. I think the first one we got was related to the ACE account. Christian, that's a good question for you. I think the ACE account show us as an exporter. We have been enabled to append to include the importer account. We have contacted ACE many times and have sent email with no response. We are stuck. What should we do?
Yeah, that's a great question. And unfortunately, a scenario that I've heard far too often where, even myself, I've tried reaching out to ACE and, get no response. So That is nothing new. I mean, that is unfortunately your U.S. government at work for you. But what I would recommend is going back and resubmitting that 5103 form, and also indicating that you would like to be set up as an importer as well, not just an exporter. That will allow you to get that IOR number. That is important. Or if you already have one, it'll help you. It'll help them at least re-trigger ACE to allow the import side of it as well, not just the export side.
We have someone asking like if they are the importer of record, but they don't have the ACE account yet. If they set up the ACE account, can they do this themselves?
If they set up the ACE account, can they do the IEEPA refund themselves? Or
yeah,
you can, but I will just stress that the data integrity and data validation is crucial, not just from an exposure standpoint of ensuring that you're not going to be hit with additional tariffs and blindly uploading the tariff or the impacted entries, but also making sure that you are able to pass all the validations that are performed by the ACE portal, meaning are these entries truly impacted by IEEPA? Are the correct HTS codes on these entries, and that whole list I went through earlier. So yes, it's possible, but there are inherent risks on doing it manually or yourselves if you do not have a very comprehensive or thorough understanding of customs law.
Thank you, Christian. So we have another one saying that, so if a US company reimburses a UK parent company for tariff, the US company is not eligible for a refund, ?
So if I understand the question correctly, the UK company is charging the US as a line item on the commercial or on the invoice, the sales invoice. In those cases, yes, it's very likely that the UK entity somewhere along the lines paid tariff either through a broker or through an agent somewhere that acted as the importer, and that the US entity would not be the importer of record and therefore not be eligible for the IEEPA refund directly from US Customs.
All right. We have someone that said, I think it's Brendan, who said, why do I have a fail status, but the error description show entry summary is in final liquidation status?
That is curious. Those two don't usually coincide with one another. If that is truly what's going on, I would, I hate to say this, but I would reach out to ACE support. Unfortunately, there's not much from our perspective that we can provide guidance on with that mismatch of errors and success. So.
Okay. You said that the CAPE system aggregates all the recovery requests for each ACE account. Does that mean that we need to file all our refund claims at once, or can they be presented over time in order to stay within the time limit for filing?
They could. It's not a one and done. So you can submit any eligible ACE entries in the CAPE portal as you have data available. So, I mean, ideally, you want to target the ones that are expiring most recently first, and then you can work backwards from there.
All right. We do have someone say, how do you know if you have an ACE account set up? And how do you find out who your TEO is?
So how do you know if you have an ACE account set up? I mean, the first way to go into it is you can try the forgot password option within ACE. And then the other option would be to, I would say, go back and submit that 5103 form to US Customs, and that way you at least get your IOI number set up if you don't already have it, and just make sure you have that crucial email address linked or provided in that 5103 form to make sure that that when you do go through and create that portal, those two email addresses do match, because they do the two-factor authentication. So there's no harm in submitting that 5103 form back to U.S. Customs, because if anything, it'll just restart, or it'll re-trigger them to reactivate the ACE account if it's inactive. And I will mention that ACE will automatically deactivate any user that has not logged in within the last 60 days as a security measure. So just keep that in mind, that if you're not in that account fairly regularly, it will automatically deactivate. Doesn't mean it's going to be gone forever. It just means that it needs to be re-triggered to activate the status by either an ACE admin at your company or ACE support.
We have a good one also from Brandon here. If you were bought out and operate under a new EIN, but it's the same, it's a company, assuming you will need two separate importer of record account?
Yes, that is likely. So the IEEPA refunds go back to the original entity that imported those goods. So in the case you were bought out, you'd have to try and get access to those original ACE accounts, because you would need the former tax ID really or the ACE account assigned to that former tax ID to successfully file those CAPE submissions.
All right. A broker has offered to file on their behalf. I'll have all the imports through that broker except for one shipment which came through another broker. What should we do?
So, I've been reading, a lot on, just industry news where it goes to the old adage, right? That the cheapest way isn't necessarily the best way, right? I mean, in a lot of cases, brokers are offering, very low rates for IEEPA recovery, because they're just going to go through and basically, like I mentioned earlier, blindly extract the entries that were IEEPA impacted, load those into the CAPE portal, and see what happens. They don't go through the due diligence, the auditing, the data engineering to make sure that everything is in fact accurate. I can tell you from firsthand experience here that brokers are prone to making mistakes, especially when the tariff law changed as frequently as it did in the last let's say 18 months now. Ensuring that everything is accurate, Leighton basically provides a second set of eyes to ensure that what the broker filed was accurate, thereby reducing any kind of potential future audit risk for your company, or ensuring that you're not going to be held accountable for additional tariffs when you submit through the CAPE portal. So while I know brokers offer the service, like I mentioned on my earlier slides, they are very efficient at their transactional entry writing. But when it comes to the minute details of truly understanding the nuances of these entries, that is where consulting firms definitely have the upper hand.
All right. I don't see. Oh, yes, we do have one more. That's a good one that we get a lot. When we engage a customer, do you help with the ACE account setup? And if you do, how, I guess?
Yeah, so while we cannot set up the account on your behalf because it requires that email address and the two-factor authentication, we can absolutely assist with guiding you through the process. We can do any kind of technological support via screen share or whatever we can utilize to make sure that all the information is accurate. We can make sure that the information is there. We can then help you go through the actual setup of the portal once that form is submitted to U.S. Customs. So while we cannot do it on your behalf, but we can definitely support.
Right. I think the last one was if we can get the whole recording with the Q&A. Yes, everything that we have said today and on the recording and the slides will be accessible to all of you after that from tomorrow. So if you have any more questions, I don't think I see any more questions for now. Again, if you have hesitation, if you're not sure, it doesn't hurt to at least book a meeting with us. We'll be more than happy to make sure that everything is compliant, that you go in the right way. If you have any issues, we're going to be very transparent in telling you if we can actually support you and help and bring added value If you think you've paid other tariff or you exported also outside of the country, we can explore duty recovery or duty drawback. It will be a pleasure. All of our mandates are success-based fee. We do not charge any minimum cost or base cost. If you do engage with Leighton, it will only be no financial risk. So we do analysis for free. And that's why we're also being very transparent if there is potential before we actually move forward with the client to make sure nobody going to waste his time into this process. So we have 5 more minutes. I see that. Okay, we had some. I think we answered that one a little bit, but you see, yes, Paul. I think we have the one question where can the broker do this for us? It's a little bit like you mentioned right now, right, Christian? We answered that one a little bit.
JD, I have one more point there. So I didn't address the point where this person had entries from multiple brokers, right? So I will say that if you work for the brokers, the broker's only able to file entries, IEEPA refunds for entries that they brought in on your behalf. So you have to work with all of your various brokers to be able to recover those IEEPA dollars. Whereas with Leighton, we can work with you directly, and you as the importer can file across all of the entries that you've done. So it's basically a one-stop solution versus having to go through all the various brokers that you imported with.
Exactly. We have more of a technical question, which is what is the difference between the ES 003 or visit the CBP 7501?
Yeah, so the ES003 report is an entry summary report that you can extract out of the ACE system. It is the most detailed, I will say, ACE report that contains line level information in terms of all the product that was imported on that single entry. However, even that report does not include the data elements required to identify which ones are eligible for phase 1 of CAPE. Custom reports need to be created to get to that level of detail, and then the entry summary, the 7501 form is basically the paper version of what is presented in that ES003 data file. So they contain the same data element. Just one's electronic and the 7501 is a physical document.
All right. I think we covered everything. So it's very important, obviously, touching back to understand if you are being the importer of record or not before you do want to move forward with the refund. We see a lot of people try to get in touch with us, but obviously most of the time we see that they are not exactly the importer of record. I know that most of the company has been paying those IEEPA tariffs that have been passed along to you, but unfortunately, how it is set up right now, only the importer of record can file for the refund. So that's definitely something you want to check before moving forward. And yeah, any other comments, question, Christian?
No. I appreciate everyone joining the call today. Hopefully this was useful and insightful on how IEEPA recovery is progressing and the challenges that are out there. But here at Leighton, we are here to support you every step of the way, from ACE account creation to the submission of those entries into the CAPE portal to ultimately ACH recovery. So we're here for you.
Exactly. That's a good question. We're going to finish on that. That's going to be the last one. And then we have about a minute and 30 seconds left. But if people engage with us, what do they need to provide to us? That's a good question that we see a lot also.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so, ultimately all we need from any of our clients is access to their ACE portal. We will go through, we will create those custom reports, we will do the data mining, we will do the analysis, we will do all that prior to charging a penny. Leighton is success-based only, so it's truly a risk-free endeavor for a lot of our clients to make sure that there are dollars to be recovered. And again, the only thing we would need from you is access to that ACE data, and we would get that by having you renting us access to your ACE account.
That's it, right? We don't need any documents from the broker. We don't need any documents from the company itself. All we need is access to ACE, and once we got that, we're good to go until the end.
Correct.
Awesome. Okay, I see that the link doesn't seem to work. We'll try to have that thing work out. If the link doesn't work directly, I think you can go on our website and just we do have a custom duty page where you can actually set up a meeting also on the web page. Or if the link doesn't work for you directly, you can go directly on the website. So we have 10 seconds left. Thank you, Christian, for your time for the presentation. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We appreciate that, and hopefully see you in the future to help you recover some duty.